Paetz here. So I have some of my alone gear pulled out. Some stuff that I know nobody's ever seen. And I think there's some interesting stuff that you guys need to hear about. So one of the main things out there to keep us alive is socks. And they're a really, really huge deal. And there's a couple mistakes I made with my socks that I want to show you. And a couple modifications I did out there that have never been seen before. So here we go. I'm just going to start with the socks. But there's essentially the point of this video is some good gear choices I made and some bad gear choices I made. And I would normally be doing this out there, but it's raining, so. My first and favorite pair of socks. These wigwams. These were my A-gamers out there. They're nice and loose, pretty thick, and they also have sort of modifications. I ended up putting another layer, sewing another layer inside the front here because you can see they started to separate a little bit. But there's another layer of sock in there. It's a smart wool sock sewn into the tip there. And here's what I did. So I had some of these climbing socks, which were the dumbest thing I could have ever brought. I think I had 2 pairs of climbing socks that are really tight, and they're not for what we were doing out there. So those were a mistake. So I ended up using those in a couple different ways. The first way was I took these normal smart wool socks, and then I took some of my scarf, my orange scarf that I made my fashion show hat out of, my squirrel fashion show hat. And there's layers and layers and layers of socks inside the tip of these to make them just a little bit warmer for the toes. And I sewed for a really long time with my burbot bone and inner paracord strands to make these become one of the warmest pairs of socks that I had out there. And I call them the Franken sock. But they were really good. They kept me busy for quite a while making these, and I was really happy with the way they turned out. But they're so thick in the tip, and up here they're just normal. But so those ended up being good. And then my best pair of smart wool socks were these babies, and I found honestly that they did not keep me as warm as the wigwams that I showed you an item or two ago. So the wigwams were my personal favorite. I'm sorry, smart wool, but smart wool were still good. Here's another thing. So this is a smart wool gaiter, and you can tell that it's not meant to be brown. It's like white and green is what it's supposed to be, but it's filthy. I had a gaiter on pretty much all day, every day out there. So I use this one quite a bit. But then I had this one here that my mom made. Now she made it much bigger than this and thicker than this, but I ended up using the material from it for various other things, including my sleeping bag repair, which my sleeping bag's right here. And I'm going to show it to you again. I showed it in another video, but I want to show it to you again because the climbing socks that were the terrible choice are sewn all over in here. Like these. These are part of them. Then here's part of my scarf. And then here's part of the gaiter thing that my mom made me. And this is my busted zipper sleeping bag. I sewed on this for a long time, and I kept having to add to it over and over again as the days passed, because I'd wake up in the middle of the night like cold, and I'd be okay, add more, add more, add more, add more. And I just kept sewing and sewing and sewing into it. But it turned into that. And here's something. So these are black diamond mittens that I was very happy with. I had no problems at all with these. They were good. And what sucks is right at, I think it was the last day or the day before, I ended up cutting them right here with my saw. and it cut through the outer part, through the Gore-Tex, and yeah, so I ended up screwing them up. But I brought them home and I sewed them up the best I could, so they're at least like sort of usable still. With these black diamond mittens, I wish I could remember the exact model of them, but I don't at the moment. But those were, I was so happy with those. I would not change those at all. And what we have here are the leather work gloves. So these are bison hide. These are made by Maroon Bell Outdoors. And I was happy with these. There's just a little bit of cracking going on in here, but they were good, really tough work gloves. They did take a long time for them to ship them to me. I was getting concerned, actually. They took way too long to ship, so that's kind of a bummer. If anything bad I can say about my experience getting these gloves, it was that. But overall, they worked good. Maroon Bell. For ambiance and authenticity, I'm wearing my Sherpa sweater with my custom thumb holes. This was a main part of my gear. You can see in this thing there's like sewing that took place all over the place to fill in the holes. But they'll never wear this thing out in public again. No way. And what else do we have? We have this hat. So this is faux fur, made by Crown Cap. It actually is a pretty cheap hat, but I put on it some oil, some of that Filson like wax, and it was a good enough hat. Kept me going. You've definitely seen me in this hat. But I would have probably opted for like a beaver fur lined if I could do it over again, but it was good enough. My head never really got cold, so it did fine for like a $30 hat. And here's something that Sitka Gear is not gonna like to hear. So I bought these. I paid like $150 for them, and they failed in every conceivable way imaginable. So I took them out on a hunt. You know, I took them out. Remember the first moose I saw, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go out the next day and hunt that thing. That was the first day I wore these, and by the time I got back to my shelter, that my hands were soaked and I couldn't figure out why. There was a hole that came from the factory inside of here. So like day one, these gloves were leaking, and they're shredded. I sewed these things all up too. Look at that. The whole tip of that finger's missing because it cut open. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna sew it across. So I did that. But these were, sorry, Sika, these were not good gloves. And fuck, man, I just got. Oh God! Oh. Stop! Hold, please. God, get your hands away from your face, dude. I just got a really. Just about puked. All right, there's a lot of fish odor on those gloves. I had them in a Ziploc bag until like a few minutes ago. And I just got a really bad whiff of fish. Rotten paste, dude. I'm gonna have to edit this a lot. Back to business. I'm like crying right now. All right, puking on YouTube videos. I gotta recover. Appreciate you guys watching. Here's some of my items, and yeah, my Franken socks may be coming soon to a store near you, but I doubt it. But I'm not making any money any other way, so probably should get into the clothing business. But I appreciate you guys. That's a little bit deeper look into some of my gear and what I thought about it and what worked good and what did not work as good. So thanks a lot. I'll see you guys in the next one.